training and support. This is your opportunity to get immediate help from someone who's been there and done it all. I'm David Stuckler. I've been a professor at Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, and now Bocconi in Milan. And that's right, this is 100% free support in this group to help you really thrive, from editing to presenting to connecting and making the most out of your relationship with your supervisor, to getting on that proverbial fast track as an academic. And many of you ask me, David, how can you really do this for free? And it's really because the proverbial way of saying my cup is overflowing. I've been so fortunate to benefit from fantastic mentorship and support along the way. And I've seen firsthand how students who are incredibly talented and bright, when they don't get that support that they really need to thrive, can really fall off the wagon. In the worst case, burn out and not make it. I mean, it's something that's very personal to me, but also because when I was a graduate student at Cambridge, I remember vividly one of my best friends, Louis, and Louis is one of the brightest guys I know, and also one of the most stubborn guys I know. And he was on a path in Cambridge University, obviously incredibly bright and talented, where he really wanted to do everything for himself, and he wanted to impress his supervisors, often who weren't in touch and weren't in reach. And Louis was always kind of the first in the library and the last to leave. Worked incredibly hard, but he put himself on a vicious path to getting burnt out. And over time, he started getting less and less done. He kind of pulled back from friends, myself included, and wasn't really getting the support he needed from his supervisors, which he thought was perfectly normal, but really looking back was not. And the sad thing is, Louis never finished his PhD at Cambridge, even though I believe he was much more talented than me. And the only real difference between us is that I was able to access the support I needed to reach out, get help, when I needed it to get ahead. That's not a sign of weakness, but it's something fundamental and central to what you need to do as a grad. So what I did in creating this community is created the support that I wish I would have had available as a grad, and created the kind of support that I think could have been a lifeline for Louis and many other grads out there. Many of you who are maybe feeling good, but feel like there are others who are getting ahead of you. Maybe you're not getting support from your supervisors. Others of you who are going in circles, feeling lost and don't know what to do, and have great ambitions, passions. You want to make a difference with your research, but you see this big disconnect in how to do it, and feel very frustrated as you see your peers and others just racing ahead of you, seemingly effortlessly gliding from one success to another. So that's what this community is all about. And today, as an expression of that, I'm going to dig into some of the submissions that you've sent to me, which I make available to all of you in the group. And we're going to roll up our sleeves and live edit one of your systematic reviews that you've been completing as part of our systematic review challenge. If you haven't seen that systematic review challenge, check out the replays of our past videos. We have a whole step-by-step guide that's the same training that you normally have to pay thousands and thousands for attending these elite universities, and I've made it available to you 100% free. So you're not going to want to miss out on that. Every grad student needs to do a literature review, and I have shared with you the right way to do it, and the right way to do it so that you can publish it and really get a strong foundation to your graduate studies, whether that's at the master's, PhD level, or even beyond. I routinely do these reviews in every piece of research that I do for a number of reasons that I won't get into now. So yeah, really excited to see a lot of your submissions, and I've chosen some illustrative examples. Some of you have gotten in touch with privately to give you some support. But I really want to work together on Daniel's from the group, because I think it's a good illustrative example that highlights some of the many common pitfalls and struggles that you may be seeing on your review. So I'm going to share the screen here in a moment. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't joined our Facebook group already, uh, what are you waiting for? You're going to get tremendous value here. And my assistant, Christine, is going to welcome you and get you set up with the right resources that are available for you. Many students have really benefited from our writing training. And it's one of those things that we really should teach in our universities, but we don't. Sometimes the research librarians offer it, but these are often people who have never done any research themselves. So you're really going to get a ton of value out of our writing training. So make sure you get a hold of that and link up with Christine. We'll set you up right away. Okay, with that, I'm going to share my screen, and I want to jump straight into Daniel's review and do some editing together. And I'm looking at this fresh. I haven't looked at this in detail because I wanted you to have a look and see effectively what I'm seeing. So, okay. So we've got Daniel's review. I converted this from, he sent me a PDF, and it's much easier to work in a Word document. Just get in the habit. If you send to your supervisors, professors at any time, send them a Word document so they can actually give you some meaningful feedback. But I converted this over to Word to make it easier. And you can already see what we've got. Sustainable Entrepreneurship Trifecta Framework, a Systematic Literature Review Study. Now, kind of my initial glance here is this is probably going to need some macro edits versus micro edits. I differentiate macro edits and micro from macro, kind of a big structural edits, make sure all the content and components are in place, versus micro edits when we're kind of going on a more granular sentence, even word level, to edit infelicities of expression and clean up the style and clarity. But right now, we're probably going to be taking kind of panning out, taking a macro view. I just got a comment. I just want to make sure that the stream is all clear for you. Sometimes it can be hard to track and see. And no, this looks like it is going through at the moment. So that is that's fantastic. Just want to make sure that you can see the entire screen, and it looks like you can. Good. Okay. So first thing, in your title of a systematic review, this is not the time to get too creative, and don't overthink it. Your PICO elements need to be in the title. This key component, and we don't have it here. And also saying here, I like the idea of maybe coming up with an interesting framework, but that's not really it's not really clear. People are going to look at this unless this is a commonly established phenomenon. That's not clear. You also don't want you don't need this abbreviation in the title, so get rid of that abbreviation from the title. You can look around titles. You usually don't see these in titles. Okay, abstract. Let's take a quick look. Study investigates the emergence of sustainable entrepreneurship with a systematic literature review. Okay, the issue already. Abstract, remember, abstract is a mini synopsis of a paper, and there are two flavors of abstracts that you can have. One is a structured abstract, where often it's already kind of compiled in. You need to fill out the background, the methods, the results, the conclusion. It already has kind of structural components of what needs to be in there. Unstructured is needs to have the same ingredients. It just isn't broken into subject headings. This is obviously the unstructured flavor of the abstract. And what you can see here, there are bits missing. So it still needs to have those same elements that you would expect to find in a structured abstract. And that is really kind of a short synopsis of the introduction, especially what's the background? Why are we having this conversation now? What's the gap that you're trying to fill? Why do you need a systematic literature review? What you did and what you found, and any major implications for theory, practice, or policy if applicable. And this doesn't have the gap. This is really unclear. What is the value added of this? Hard to see. Hard to see. So maybe this systematic look hasn't been done before. Maybe this is a very interdisciplinary field, and that's why you want to see what's people are saying business and psychology and economics, finance. It's not clear. So what is the why is this such an important topic? And I think sustainable entrepreneurship will definitely need to define that somewhere as well. We might need to define anything that people can participate in this conversation along the way or early up front. So why are we having this conversation now? And what is the gap? And how do you fill it? And also we've got some, I'm not going to do micro edits, but this is, I recommend everybody when editing, read aloud. Because I find with many authors and writers, you sometimes are in a funny situation where you speak better than you write. And sometimes by reading aloud to yourself, you can hear the problem. So let me read this. Also infuse into an integrated framework known as the trifecta framework of sustainable entrepreneurship and evolution from macro, meso, micro factors. So I think Daniel, and I'm really grateful, Daniel, for you putting yourself out there and being willing to expose yourself and share with the group to the benefit of everybody. I know it can be quite confronting, and you see red marks and comments and feel like, I'm not good enough. This is to strengthen your work and your research, which I can tell the nuts and bolts are there. We just need to make this a whole lot clearer, have some sympathy for our readers, and make it easier for them to understand all this good stuff that you've done. So yeah, I think you can see this is quite quite tricky to follow. So definitely check this and explain. So some of this, it might be clear to you, but remember in writing, you have to kind of reverse engineer, all the work, the assumptions and thinking that led you to your conclusions. You have to make it simple to take your reader by the hand to help them arrive at the same conclusion you did. And this is not quite clear. The abstract, you should have about 250 to 300 words. You do have some space to unpack. You need the methods. So this is nice. You explain the themes, but this doesn't tell us you found these themes, but what does that mean? We still don't know what this means. And I would even go through and say, maybe list the databases, mention your inclusion, exclusion criteria. You want to make it easy so that anybody at a glance can see what you did and what you found, without having to read the whole paper. Okay. Also, just on the word count, this is quite high. So just going to acknowledge again, chance of acceptance declines geometrically with the increase in word count. What do I mean? That your chance of acceptance just nosedives as things get too long. Keep it shorter when you can. And I know you say, oh, but my field, social science, they love 15,000 word papers. Nope, that's been changing in recent years. Even so, if you want to err on one side, err on the side of being concise. It's like one of my favorite authors, and I draw on heavily for scientific writing, Ernest Hemingway said, he was writing to a dear friend, and he started his letter saying, I'm sorry, dear friend, I wrote you a long letter because I didn't have time to write a short one. And that's especially true for science. So more is less. Less is more. Okay, as the cliche goes. Okay, let's go through the introduction. Okay, I already see something quirky jumping out on the page. This bold is a surefire way to annoy whoever is reading this. Get rid of that. And this is not the way you start a paper. You don't start a paper with some person here highlighted this with some background. It just reads a little bit elementary. It doesn't have the kind of maturity or weight that you expect from a seasoned academic. One concept I want you to understand in thinking about a paper is your authority in the paper as an author. And you can imagine one world in which an author takes all authority and doesn't cite anybody. That's maybe one extreme, too far. Another world in which the researcher doesn't claim anything and just cites everybody else. You want to deploy authority yourself by citing appropriately that here's what they're saying, and clearly delineate what you're saying, what you're doing. And certainly at the beginning of the paper, you're setting the scene for why we're having this conversation. And that's not one by saying, so-and-so is doing this. Now, maybe there's a big debate that, so-and-so Barringer sparked this huge debate with this landmark paper. And then immediately come back to what you're going to dig into that, what your take is going to be on that. But I don't think this is right. So really, this first paragraph is, Daniel, I want you to go back and rewatch our writing training, which actually gives you'll actually find in the group your outline for your paper. And almost every paper, I've done examples in the group showing you how across disciplines, they all follow the structure template. So why are we having this conversation now? For you, I imagine this as in sustainable entrepreneurship, that look, and I need to make sure I'm understanding sustainable entrepreneurship as well, because there's not a clear, easy definition that you put in here. You need to define that very clearly somewhere. My understanding of sustainable entrepreneurship, bear in mind, take it with caveat, I'm not an expert, is that somehow you can be entrepreneurial, you can make money by doing good things for the environment and sustainable development. You can find these, you can launch a startup, you can be enterprising and start a new company that's going to profit somehow on the social good in certain domains of development. So that's what I think, but you really need to make that clear up front, especially because you're trying to start with what entrepreneurship is. And I don't think you need to define this up front. I would actually suggest, so why are we having this conversation now? And I don't know why we're having this conversation now, reading this here. I have to read more than 2 paragraphs to even get to that if it's there. So you need to define upfront sustainable entrepreneurship. And I'd start with right right up front. Maybe there's this what you said before. There's this emerging field of sustainable entrepreneurship, um, and there's a lack of clarity about what it really is, what it involves. Is this just lip service? Is this just fancy words that have no real backing or basis? There's a lot of skepticism about it, perhaps. Uh, and you see, by framing it in that way, you're starting to roll out the red carpet for yourself to say, okay, there's this debate, and I'm going to engage in this debate by doing a systematic literature review. So you really need to get to next, what is the gap, right? You need to set out what we know and what we don't know. So that's my main thing. This introduction needs some surgery. And then finally, in your next paragraph, you need to get to your systematic review, how it fills this gap. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, you've started every paragraph citing this. So this also, again, go back and watch this writing training. Watch the writing training on our peer system and topic sentences. If this is unfamiliar to you, I'm assuming some background knowledge because those videos are all available in the group. Go back, check it out. Reach out to me. Reach out to Christine. The support we have available to you to get you connected to those resources. They're gonna be a lifesaver. Okay, so yeah, even here when you jump straight into the methods, you haven't set out anywhere what you're gonna do, and this is very thin. So. Yeah, you got to get rid of these bolds because this is just bizarre. Okay, right, methodology. Okay, immediately I also see. I mean, you really seem to like starting every paragraph with citing different. Every paragraph, you're starting with these guys. No, you cite people as evidence to back up your points. You need to make your point first. So, and this is also out of order. So go back. I'm going to highlight here macro. Watch the methods writing training. And if you're really lost, I'll send you one of our live demonstration videos of me working closely with one of our fast track students to write the method section. Again, it follows common patterns. You need to start with your search strategy, right? And usually in your search strategy, you need to mention that you followed the Prisma approach, and it's very logical, the methods, because you just explain what you did. So you say very simply that you look for certain keywords and how you found them, and variants of those keywords, and you need to say what the databases you searched were. And you can see here, this is going into a big discussion about why do a systematic review. You've got 4 paragraphs on why systematic review. So I mean, my radical suggestion here is to say goodbye to all of this. Oops, and I just got my comment. Let me get my comment back. I'm gonna just try to fix the location of this comment. And guys, I know you may have some questions as I'm going along. I'm going to check that in a second on my travel laptop. I'm not able to check the screen. This needs to go to the intro. To the intro and compact. Ernest Hemingway would be really not happy with you. I might even disown you as a friend if you sent this to him. And okay, that's there. Let's see if I can get this in the comment for you. I'm just moving it in the comment. It's got a section break or something quirky in it. I don't know why there's a section break in here. There should not be. So I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to paste it unformatted to get rid of the hidden section break. And then I'm going to, whoops, I just put it in as a picture. That's definitely not what you want to do. Unless you're making a box. Make a box, that could be useful. But that's not what you want here. Okay, this should get rid of the section break. Word can be quite quirky in this way. And now I'm going to put in a comment box so that you can put it back in later. Okay. So now, okay, good. Now the method already looks like we're coming straight into a method. And check the sentence. Uses 3 steps to replicate efficiently. This, I'm just going to put a comment. Check, not clear. Okay. Now this is good. Now we're getting to things that we can actually begin to see what you did. And again, the principle is you want to make this as easy as possible for your editors, supervisors, reviewers to see what you did. And that's important so that that you can get the right feedback. One of the most frustrating things students get is like, yeah, but you didn't understand what I did. But I already did that. And I used to think, well, oh, these people are just so dumb. And then I realized that, no, it's on me. I didn't make it clear enough. So now I go in and I just assume all my readers are going to be dumb and they're not going to get it, and make it that simple for them to follow. So I would put in here, just get your sections organized right. You can always take this out later if you want. But I would put in search strategy. Right, just following this, and what you want to do is get up to the databases search and your initial screen, the initial search. So this is nice. So I'm going to go look at your Prisma in a second. And okay, good. Inclusion, exclusion criteria. That's good. That's good. So you've got the nuts and bolts here. So I really like this. Inclusion, exclusion criteria, and you're explaining why. And it looks like you did do a quality assessment. No. So this is unclear. How did you do it? I think you mean screening? When you just glance at the abstract and title for screening? Like for that, oh, there's an annoying break here. This is why you don't want these kind of quirky breaks here in the middle of the page. But that could very well be because I took it out of the PDF. So that could definitely be on me. In the quality assessment, this is strange. This is not a quality. I'm not sure what you mean here, but I'm just gonna say check what you mean by quality assessment. Usually, quality assessment is when you take some pre-existing tool or you adapt a tool for your study to assess what was the quality of the studies. Why do you do that? Because inevitably, imagine there might be a whole bunch of terrible studies, crap studies, and one really good one. Well, you're going to want to place much more emphasis for drawing conclusions from that really good one. And quality assessment reflects this, that not all studies are created equal. And I don't think what you've done is that theirs. Maybe you did, but that didn't come out clearly. So check it. And you need to also, if you do take from Google Scholar, you need to specify numbers. Let me split the screen, which, as you know, when editing, I really like to do, especially for writing the method section. I'm going to come down and try to find your Prisma figure. There should be a Prisma figure somewhere. Aha, here's Prisma figure. Okay, a little hard to see, splitting the screen. Let's come up. Okay, records identified. Good. You've labeled the databases nicely. Why didn't you put the databases, make the databases simpler here? Emerald, Scopus, Google Scholar registers. What are the registers? I don't know what these registers are. What are these? You need to specify them. And I would put the total number so you can understand where everything comes from. So, okay, you put a limit 2017 to 2022. And remember how I said you need this in your title, in your PICO? Your PICO needs to come in here of 2017, 2022. I have some reservations about you picking just those 5 years. You need to define, if you're limiting the last 5 years, you need to really explain why. Maybe this whole idea about sustainable entrepreneurship only came out in the last 5 years. Maybe the term was only mentioned 2 years ago, so it doesn't make sense to look past that. But you really need a justification. So I'm adding another comment here, justification. If you are doing something like this, you don't want it to just seem ad hoc. You need to justify intellectually why you did it. Okay. Other thing I'm seeing that is raising some concerns here is that here, title, got two T's, irrelevance records. Why weren't they relevant? You want to be as specific here as possible in setting out your criteria. So I'm going to put here, why were they irrelevant? Specify the reasons. Again, irrelevant records excluded. So that's really hard to understand. Also, this doesn't make sense. So this is misplaced. You go through screening, you look at the title abstract, you decide what's in or out, and sometimes you can't make a judgment. Then you get the full text. And sometimes you can't get the full text. That's what retrieval is all about. So if you couldn't get the full text, this should only be, you're only taking out things where you couldn't get the full text. So something's off there. Also, the numbers aren't adding up. If you had 186 and you took out 77, that's not going to leave you with 107. So that's an easy thing. It gives a misleading view that you just didn't do a thorough job in your Prisma. Then when the numbers don't add up, so fix that. And then reason number 3, it's like, well, where's reason number 1 and number 2? No, okay, so this no full access to the paper, that's retrieval. So the boxes are misaligned. Really important before you go too far, you want to make sure your Prisma is right. get the method section right before going on too far. One of the frustrating things some students experience is having to redo steps of their paper. So there's some glitches in this Prisma, and again, these numbers still aren't adding up. Make sure you go back and rewatch the videos on screening and eligibility, and make sure you've got clarity about what you need to do on the step. And it's not uncommon. I mean, trust the process. The training is really good at taking many students step by step to getting through the publication. But you need to make sure you've really understood what you need to do. And that may mean you've got to watch the video 1 or 2 times. I mean, we have delivered to you a lot of dense information in a compact period of time where we've got no fluff, we've got no nonsense. I'm giving you the how-to step-by-step guide on this. So that can be densely packed. So you may need to just take some time to ensure you've really got it and internalized it. So listen, I think this is already a lot to be getting on with. Also, this table of contents you don't need. That's usually not in a paper, and I don't know if it's for a master's thesis. For a master's thesis, that's okay, but I'd get rid of this. In general, you can disagree with me. That's okay, but I'd get rid of it. Okay. I'm just going to give you a few more comments because this is already quite a bit to be getting on with. So, oh, hang on, got another formatting glitch. I'm guessing this is from the PDF. By the way, another tip, I really don't like, I know a lot of students want to justify it like this to make it look fancy, but then you can't really troubleshoot any typos or grammar errors easily. I would focus in 2 steps. Leave it messy, let's justify, and then when you're done, last step, make it pretty, and then you can align it like this. So I just think it's a colossal waste of time until you've gotten the content right. Get the content right, then make it look nice. So here you get your results. And I like that you've got the results. If you're going to break into the results, you need to say in the bottom of your methods, your extraction. You haven't said anything here about your extraction and analysis strategy. You haven't. So we have no idea where these themes come from or how you did your analysis. So we can put a comment here to flag for that. Say how you did your thematic analysis and what you extracted. I'm assuming you've got a summary table somewhere, even if it's just an appendix. I'm going to go in and look for that. So lots of tables. Okay, here's a framework. So you need to say, is this yours? Clear where it came from. Maybe it's something that you developed as a result. It's just you type from that. Emerging themes. So like you coded here. Inclusion, exclusion, decision. Yeah. So thread this into the Prisma. Prisma. I don't know what sub-screening stage. I think you mean this is a little bit of a way to analyze it. You should be able to get everything in the Prisma. Okay, I'm not seeing any other. I'm not seeing the big summary table. This is gaps and variables. No, so I'm missing a main summary table of each study, what the study did, and what it found. So it looks like views. Yeah, we need study design. So I'm seeing already a problem that I'm missing an extraction table. And here it is, but you said you have 42 in your Prisma. Wait a second. I'm not trying to get dizzy about that. You said you got 40 here. I think you said in the abstract that you had 40. So something's off there. So yeah, Daniel, listen, thank you for sharing this with us. And, I hope you're not, offended or any by these comments. I really put yourself out there. I know it can feel like critique, and often my students will say that I'm fierce, but loving. This is all meant to strengthen your paper and take it from being good to being having a smooth ride in the literature. So I'm going to come back and come to you here. So okay, let me keep going, and I want to you for any questions at this point, because we just covered a lot of ground very, very fast. So, okay, on Facebook, all good, really interesting. Okay, good to happy you guys are getting some value. Exactly, yeah, definitely. Get your paper in for next week. Have you got access to the writing training? Yeah, I will liaise. I'm looking through the comments to see who said that. And sorry, guys, yeah, it's breaking up a bit sometimes the signal sometimes does go a little bit. Poor audio. Okay, yeah, sometimes that does go. 1 second, let me check that. Um, it was breaking up a bit. Yeah, sometimes poor reception does happen. Okay, so yeah, Lynn, I see your comment here, and you do have access to the writing training. So um, you should be good with that. Explained, okay. Yep, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to fix one aspect here on this stream. Let me see if I can fix that. 1 moment. I'll be right back. Let me see if that helps a little bit with the audio. Hopefully for my edits, you could see where I was going in some bits that are relatively self-explanatory, I hope. And if there's anything unclear about what I just went through, and if some of you guys would actually like to see the paper itself, really happy to go back and share that. So, okay, let me take a moment though to ask you if you have some questions about the process. Clear and loud. Okay, fantastic. And looks like we've got some others who just managed to. Daniel, yeah, I know you're a little late, Daniel. I know you're late for the party. We just went through in detail about your paper, and I'm going to back over to you. And I see we've got others. We have Hudra joining us, Lynn joining. If any of you want to come directly in the studio, the link is in the Facebook group. So do take advantage of that. Get you extra help. But Daniel, yeah, definitely catch up on the replay and make sure, right, that's what some of those resources are for. This writing training, it's going to enable us to be more specific and pinpoint, right, okay, you're not following the peer system, you're not putting clear topic sentences, go watch this training. But this big library of master classes and resources we have are going to enable me to give you that clarity, knowing what you need to do to get past the challenge that you're currently facing. Daniel, yeah, just to recap for you, I thought you did a really bang up job. There are just a few areas that kind of on a macro level structurally to check up on, make sure they're syncing. But yeah, it's clear you've done a lot of work and come a very long way in a short period of time. Remember, when you look at this, the result of what Daniel has, this was just, he had never done this before and got to this point in just a few short months. So really impressive, Daniel, how far you've been able to go, and I can tell that you have a lot of enthusiasm and passion for the topic. Okay, we've got some time to open up for questions. Yeah, and somebody else is saying exactly, if you're looking for help, just message one of our admins, post a question, and really tap the power of community in getting you support. I know, Hajar, that you also had some challenges you were just going through. I just want to talk to Hajar because she had messaged me privately, and Hajar, do feel free to jump on with a studio link. But Hajar was going through the Type 2 error test on Google Scholar, and I just want to remind you what that's all about. So remember, type 2 errors are the ones that give you nightmares. They're the ones that you don't want, because that's when you've missed an important paper in your search. And that's when you could get into a bad situation that you submit a paper and it goes out for review. And someone says, oh, you missed a seminal paper by Galea and colleagues in 1972. And it turns out that this guy Galea is one of your reviewers, and that's going to be kind of a no-go. And your paper is going to get killed and buried in the graveyard of papers that never see the light of day. You probably move on. But the issue is these type 2 errors. If you miss a paper, it tells you that you've got a hole in your net, that there's a gap in your search, right? The type 1 errors, it's like you got a whole bunch more fish than you needed. You can always throw those back to sea. But the type 2, if you miss papers, then you really need to rethink your search. Now, we're searching the big databases like Web of Science, PubMed, EBSCOhost, PsycInfo, these big ones, because they're replicable. So anybody can do the same search and get the same result. Google Scholar is not replicable. You're in a filter bubble. It's not to say it's not useful. Google Scholar can be very helpful for these type 2 error searches, because we're kind of doing a stress test of our search by looking to see, did we miss any papers? And Google Scholar can really come in handy for that. So when you pop in your keywords, Google Scholar really is optimized for finding those right papers that you might want very quickly. And so I want you to then to do your type 2 test using the elements of your PICO, search Google Scholar and find 5-10 papers or so that you think should be in. Go back then and check your search and make sure they're actually in. If they're not in, there can be one of two problems. Problem number one, the database that you search just doesn't contain the article. So you may need to expand your list of databases. Problem number two can be that that article is in the database, but your keywords capture it. In that case, you need to think about an efficient, parsimonious way to extend your keyword variance to capture it. Looking very closely at that paper to figure out why did you miss it and what could you have done to capture it. Then tinkering with your search, searching again until you catch that paper. And you want to do that until you're getting as low a rate of type 2 errors, as few type 2 errors as possible. There may come times where you still have two type 2 errors there. Those you can make a case for justifiably cherry picking from Google Scholar to add in, explaining why you did so. But you want to limit them as much as possible. So Hydra, I know you're on that step and you had asked me some questions about that. So want to make sure that you feel really good about doing that type 2 error test. And Hydra, let us know how you're getting on with that. And Daniel, I don't know if you did that error test on your own, but it's a really important step to take before going too far. Good. Okay. If we don't have any other major questions, again, I'm checking my DMs. We will end up calling it for today. But I wanted to make sure I've covered some of the main things that you've been struggling with this week. Yeah, Daniel, definitely. I mean, at your stage, I don't think you want to completely rejig your search at this stage, but as you'll see in the comments, you're probably going to have to update your extraction table because there are some significant elements missing. And if you have trouble with that, let me know, and I'll send you a dedicated video just on that precise step. That's going to give you a lot of clarity and help. Okay. Good. All right, guys. I think that is a good point to stop for the day. Do be in touch in the DM so we can connect you to the right resources. As ever, it's really fantastic working together. Don't hesitate to lean in and get support and help when you need it. I think so often I find students, when they're struggling or they feel uncertain about what to do, they tend to withdraw. And that's what my friend Louis did. He was suffering in silence. He didn't even want to reveal to me for fear of how I might look at him. And I thought we were best friends. Listen, guys, that's what you're paying for in your universities. And that's what this community is for. When you're struggling or feeling lost, don't put yourself at risk of a burnout pathway like Louis was on. Take advantage of one of the multiple avenues of support and help that you have available to you. There is absolutely no shame in that. And if I hadn't done that myself, there's no way I could have gotten to where I am. And there's no way I'll be able to help you make the transition to where you want to go. So much of graduate studies and PhD used to be bearing yourself in the tower with an apprentice, working very closely one-to-one to come into the field. It's very much an apprenticeship model in research, because at some point, when you're at the forefront of your field, you can't learn what you need to learn from a book. You need to learn from a top expert, because those books are just going to be out of date, and it's just impossible for those textbooks to keep up with the frontiers of your field. So make sure you get the support infrastructure in place, and make sure you leverage it. I mean, I remember in grad school thinking, I'm going to make sure I get my money worth and squeeze every last drop out of the investment that I'm making. And I don't want you to miss out on getting the full value of the investments that you're making, the investments you're making by sacrificing your time that you could be working and making more money, and invest in sacrificing the time that you could be out with friends and family. Instead, you're hitting the books and doing research because you're thinking of your future. So don't lose out on the value that you need to get making these sacrifices that you're making now to help you in the future. Okay, guys, have a great weekend, everybody. I will look forward to being in touch in the DMs, and see you next week at our usual time and our Friday live. Take care, everybody.